Yeah, good morning, everyone. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good morning all. Sorry, there was some technical glitch and I couldn't join for the last 5 minutes. Yeah, okay. I think now you have made me the host, ma'am. That is clear. All right. Shall we start?
Yes, sir, we can start.
Sir, we should.
Okay, are you able to see the screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Wonderful, wonderful. But how come the number of people are very less today?
Many must have joined and then must be waiting and then I don't know.
I don't know. Ma'am, do you think you should send another WhatsApp just now? Or you have the WhatsApp group, you can also put a message there. The 88th batch, no? You are from the 88th batch. Jagannath ji, you have the access to the WhatsApp?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
No, I request you to just send a message so that others can. If
Sir, I think we should start because the recording is already available. So those who cannot, they may refer to the recording. What we can do, no? If people are not willing or we can't help. That's what I believe. My simple philosophy.
no,
Thank you.
that's okay. I think we will.
But I will put the message. No problem. I'll put the message.
No,
That
we
I
have
have already put, sir. Already. Yeah, you have already put. Anil ji has already put. So, thank you, sir.
right. No. We have to go extra mile to get people in. That's all. A little bit of extra service we give so that we feel that we have done the best possible. Okay, wonderful. I think, yeah, at the end of the day, we are all dealing with adults and they know what they are doing and why they are doing. That's right. All right. I think since you're small in number, what we can start doing is today we have to cover two other competency frameworks as far as leadership is concerned. The first one is Rubin's 5 major leadership competency themes. And the second one, I think, is, of course, more relevant and important for all of you is the pyramid leadership competency framework. But then what we will do is we will first finish the case study and then come back to the theory part of it. So let me start with the case study. Have you had the time to go through the case study in the textbook that has been circulated to you? Has any one of you? Did you have the time to go through the case study? So your silence answers it, isn't it?
No, sir.
I have read, sir, but let me recollect.
Okay.
I have read the complete study material, but let me recollect.
Okay. Then if you have studied it, you just take a minute or so to recollect and then, we can. you can give us a brief of what the case study is all about so that those who have not read it will know the background in which we are discussing this framework. Or if any of the other person has read it, you can also just share your thoughts on that. What is the content of the case study? What happened in the case study? Those things we can discuss. Anyone?
Sir, it is about the leadership competency framework, and it talks about the new role of one person, that is Mary. And she was promoted because of whatever past performance she has delivered in her organization. But as soon as she enters into the leadership role or in the role of leading a team, then it becomes very difficult for her to perform collectively. So this typically case study, what I perceived or what I believed or what I have understood from this case study is individually you may be a performer, but collectively it may be difficult or it may be even impossible for a person to perform in a team. That is what I have perceived from this case study. And this is why we require that even I'm be pleased to share the experience what my organization has started long years ago, depending on Professor T.V. Rao's 360 degrees feedback module. And what we have started in our organization is, I think it is around 15 years or so ago, that whoever wants to be in the leadership position or whoever the organization feels that these people should fit into the leadership position, they started one exercise, and that is the competency framework, which we started long ago. And in that, interestingly, or you may also put more focus on it, they started from their childhood study as to how that person has been abroad and so on, and whether that person would fit into the leadership position or not. What I have observed in my organization is the acceptance by the team members of the leader is very, very important for the performance of him as a leader, as well as the performance of the team collectively. And this is what exactly has happened in this Mary's case, where she was a good performer or the best performer in her organization, and depending on that performance, she was promoted. After promoted as a team leader, she could not perform well, and results she could not show. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for the briefing of the case. Now, I just want to ask anybody else in the call, do you have any experience of somebody doing well, then get promoted, and then does not do well? Do you recollect any case of your own self or anybody else in your organization?
Sorry to again interrupt you, but this is my very famous quote which I have developed recently while training our development officers. I told them that you must like people and people must like you. And this is the, I think, crux of any leader to lead a team. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Anybody else? I mean, anyone else who has some inkling of this kind of an experience? Can you share your experience quickly? You should all participate. Otherwise, you know, it becomes a dialogue between me and Jagannath ji, or maybe, you know, it can also lead to a monologue by me. The case study should be participative. Okay, let me ask you a different question. Should we promote? Yes, ma'am.
So in my organization, also, so because I work in retail, we have a career progression program, which is based on performance primarily. And so what had happened is that when our store staff performed really well, and then they topped at a certain level, then they were eligible to become assistant store managers and they could be promoted. Now, what happened is, again, they were great salesmen, but doesn't mean that they were great team leaders. So there was a point in time where we started having a lot of assistant store managers who were not good team leaders, who were arrogant, who were, hungry for power, and they were controlling and all of that, because there was no bridge program in the middle to kind of equip them to become better ASM. So then someone from the L&D team framed a bridge leadership program based on what are the competencies required for an assistant store manager, and then that's how that gap was plugged in.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, that leads to a basic question. Should we promote somebody because he has been performing well in his current role? Or should we promote somebody who has certain competencies irrespective of his performance in the current? Yeah, Jagannath ji.
Sir, promotion, if as a recognition of the performance, then yes, promotion should be given. But at the same time, whether that person is having aptitude for fitting into that job or that job role is very, very important before we place that person in that post. So the organization may create a parallel position wherein the benefits will be similar or compatible, but the person should be recognized. Otherwise, if we see that the person's individual traits, they are not fit for the leadership job, but at the same time, and because of this, he can't be promoted, then it may lead to the frustration of that person. Because in spite of his well performance as individually, if he is not getting recognition, then it is a harm on individual level. But at collective level, the organization must have some strategy, some mechanism to check the aptitude of that person, whether he can be fit into the leadership position. Thank you.
Okay, great. Anybody else having any other perspective?
Sir, I feel it should be a combination of both, experience and a person doing well is also important, because then the organization has confidence that the person can be a leader in the future, and as well as his own individual personality and traits also very important, because when he's promoted to a leadership role, then his traits is going to matter most at that time, along with the experience that he carries in the organization.
Okay, now the basic question is, I think yes, Jagannath ji, you want to say something?
Yeah, there is also one saying कि पानी में ढकेल दो वो तैरना सीख जाएगा. But this may not be always possible. वो डूब भी जा सकता है या दूसरों को लेकर डुबा भी सकता है. तो ऐसा हो सकता है. तो पानी में फेंको वो तैरना सीख जाएगा. This is not. I don't think that this is good for organization. Thank you.
That's a great saying, but then you are risking the organizational survival here, right? Now that is not one person's survival, it is the whole organization's survival. Therefore, you have to be very cautious about using that analogy here. All right. Now that said, I want to make you think about it. Performance versus contribution. Performance is, as a salesperson or as a production person, or as a finance executive, I may be excelling the organization's expectations in terms of my technical skills. But then my technical skill is not what takes me to a leadership position, right? And we always expect and we always talk that somebody has done technically well should become a leadership, get into a leadership position. I think there lies the dichotomy. Whether you want to recognize somebody for his contribution and his thinking capabilities for getting into a leadership position, or somebody who has technically been doing very well, if you want to make him into a leader, what is the consequence of that in the leadership position is something that we all have to ponder over. Now, the risk is, I think, pani mein dakal dena, I think that analogy will work provided you have somebody who can mentor him and take him, walk the talk at least for some time, and then make sure that he is able to settle down well and understand the relevance of his role. But if in organizations, who has the time to do that kind of a mentorship? It's very difficult to find somebody who has the time to walk the talk. All that they can do is probably help the person to get a different role, but then you have to fend for yourself, right? So this dichotomy you have to understand. Yes, sir. You want to say something?
Again, we asked this question to our IIM professors long ago, maybe 10, 11 years ago. What typically used to happen in our organization, suppose a person, employee, is a very good programmer, computer programmer, and his boss gets pleased with him, and then he job rotates that person as a assistant branch manager sales. Now he has to lead the team of development officers, agents, and so on, so forth, the field official. And the person who is very well versed with the coding, that is programming part of it, and suddenly on the second day he is put into the leadership position or managing the sales. He don't have the acumen or the state of even public speaking and everything, and he don't have that people factor. What happens for the organization? The organization loses a good programmer, and at the same time the person becomes useless for the organization. Sorry for this word, useless for the organization as a team leader. So even I am professor, were not in a position to answer this question. So if you can, I'll be happy to listen. Thank you, sir.
That is why in HR, I mean, what you said is right, and this is being largely addressed by the human resource management professionals, and more so after the COVID. You know, in HR, what we teach about is there are two paths after you come to a certain level in the organization. Either you can technically excel in your own field, or you can get, if you have the capabilities, you can also move into the leadership positions. Once you get into the leadership position, you will automatically reduce your interface with the technical capabilities that you have. It is like you take a typical hospital. Somebody may be a great oncologist, somebody may be a great cardiothoracic surgeon, or somebody may be a great gynecologist. Now, if that person is technically so superior, and then you make him or her as the CEO of the hospital, and if the person doesn't have the leadership capabilities, it can mess up the entire hospital. So, depending on one, your technical competencies and your excellence in that versus your ability to lead a team at sacrificing your technical competencies, you will have to make an assessment, and therefore we create two different paths. Those who are good technically, let them grow in technical field. They will never become a CEO, but then they will probably receive the same kind of a respect and similar kind of a compensation, but their contribution is only in that area of specialization. The other person, though he has been technically superior, equal probably to the others at still that level, later on, just because he or she has the leadership capabilities, will rise up to the level of being a CEO. That does not mean that he is superior to the other person in the technical field. It is just that he is better leader than the other. Yes, sir.
Yet another classic example I want to share about this as to what motivates you to adapt to the new job. We had one employee in our office who was in a clerical position. He used to quarrel with each and every person in the office for one or the other reason. He used to come in such a attire, ऐसा झप्पा पहन के आने का and दाढ़ी बढ़ाने का, never shaved and all that. I saw him for 2 years in the old place. Suddenly he was applied for the marketing job. He was selected, he got selected, and he became the development officer. Now he want to recruit his job include the recruiting agents, procure business from them, and he will be incentivized for the good performance. I saw him after 1 year, 1 or 2 years, when he was posted in a very unknown or unfamiliar place of Pune city, and that too very cosmopolitan area called Camp area. And when I saw him as a development officer, he was totally changed. He was wearing the most presentable way. He was he used to come in the office. He has the biggest team of agents, and he was the largest procurer. And not only he was the biggest incentive earner of that branch. This happened just in the span of 2 years' time. So the person who used to quarrel with everybody he's changed so much to a very different personality. And what the motivating factor was the money, the incentive, the organization offered him for the good job. So this also happens. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Okay. Rasia, madam.
So I also think that so while someone might have a strong technical skill, someone might be interested in moving into a leadership role, even if they don't have the capabilities. So a skill is very learnable. So it's possible to reskill, upskill, multi-skill someone, and then the organization needs a program there to kind of help the person, get into a leadership role.
Okay, wonderful. I think generally all human beings have the desire to get into a leadership position because that is where you feel the power, the command, the respect and all. I mean, that is a general human nature. Everyone wants to command somebody else is the nature. But then at the organizational level, whether you want to put somebody in a particular role because it has a bearing, a leader has a bearing on the organizational performance, not on individual performance. A technician has a performance on his own performance. It may not lead to a huge implication for the organization as such. But if you put a wrong person as a leader, the whole organization can feel the consequences of it, right? And therefore, I think one thing is very, very clearly coming out from our discussion. The technical capabilities are different from the leadership capabilities. That is why rightly we have two topics here, technical competency framework and the leadership competency framework. So what worked as a technical competency framework beyond a level, it does not work. You'll have to really look at the leadership competency framework. That is pretty clear. I think all of you must have been convinced about it. Number one. Number two, just because somebody has the desire to get into a leadership role, and if you put him in that role, then the organization has to bear the risk of putting a wrong person in that. Now, whether the organization is interested in doing it, whether the organization can afford doing it, that is something that the concerned decision makers, particularly the senior leadership team of the organization, has to make up. I mean, you have innumerable case studies which give you a wrong leader led to the collapse of the entire organization. It has gone bankrupt. It has been wiped out of the corporate landscape, right? Now, can you take that kind of a risk is a big question. Now, the case study here precisely highlights that. Somebody has done extremely well in a certain role, and because of the consistent performance of that particular person, the organization thought that let us give a higher role to that person, Mary, and then let her lead the team. Now, once she got into that role, the initial happiness has vanished in just about 6 months, and the evidence of her getting into a role for which probably either she was not prepared or she may not have the competencies related to the leadership is evident in just about 6 months, with 50% of the people leaving. Now, typically there is a saying, people don't leave organizations, people leave their bosses. I mean, here is a case where 50% of the people from our department or from our region have left because the way she has conducted herself. Yes, madam, you wanted to say something. You raised your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that that for someone who aspires to move into a leadership role, the program has to be a gatekeeper. So you don't put someone who doesn't have the competency, you help build the competency. And once they build that competency, only then do they move into the leadership role. But it stems from the aspiration, is what I'm saying. And if whether they clear it or not will, be the outcome of whether they make it into the leadership role or not.
Okay,
so not putting bad leaders into the system. That's not what I meant.
It's very, very difficult to say who is a bad leader and who is a good leader. The true cult of the leader comes only after he comes into he occupies the position. Anyway, coming back to this point that you've raised, the well-established corporations, those organizations which have been surviving for decades, they have an excellent internal process in their HR department, backed by their L&D departments, where on recruiting a person at a management trainee level, in the initial days itself, the first 1 or 2 years, they will literally have monthly appraisal system where they'll be assessed by different sets of people to decipher what is the competence levels, to what level he can rise in the organization. You know the Peters principle, right? I don't want to repeat that. Now, the assessment that they do is based on his competencies and his aspirations and all that you see, the word you have used, aspirations, till what level he can rise in the organization as he or she is. And if you want to extend his growth in the organization, or if you want to make him or her sustain in the growth in the organization, what kind of mentorship, leadership, development programs one has to undergo, and then those training programs are mapped so that at different points in time, even without your asking for it, the organization tells you, please do this, this is going to help you in such and such a way. And this kind of a training for forward-looking career planning, identifying the career path happens some 30 years in advance before the person finally becomes probably a CEO or a divisional head or something like that. Organizations do have this, and if they feel that this person, based on their own assessment, does not have the capability to grow beyond being a level 3 manager or a general manager or a vice president, so they will make a decision. The organization takes a decision like that, and he will be still monetarily, and in terms of the designation, they will try to satisfy him, but he will not definitely be occupying the position in the organization at the CEO level. Right. I think that gives you the basic context in which we are discussing the leadership competency framework. And now let us go into this case. Basically, what this case is all about, and please make a note of this, that today organizations are not promoting people just based on the performance in your current role. Your current role, you have done exceedingly well. Good. I'll give you incentive. I'll compensate you through some increments. I'll compensate you by giving you a better room, better facilities in the office and all that. But then you will not be occupying the next level. But what makes you to occupy the next level is whether you have the ability to lead the team, even if your performance in the current role is not as much as somebody else's performance, you will still be promoted because you have demonstrated the capabilities of being a leader. Now, in this case study, the HR manager has made a study of different managers through questionnaire, through interviews, and then he came up with some 9 different competencies which are required for his organization. This is specific to this organization. Apparently, this company is in the pharmaceutical space, and they have some 600 salespeople across the country, divided into different zones and regions. So obviously, the concerned person has made a study of all the qualities that are required for being a good team leader and a good performer. And again, it's leadership is again a combination of the theory where you can be task oriented or a person oriented. If you are person oriented and you are task oriented, the implications are different. Again, I am not going to get into those things, but ideally a person should have the combination of both the qualities. But irrespective of all that, when we go into the pyramid leadership competency framework, you will understand there are some basic core competencies that every leader must have. Without those competencies, a leader cannot be a leader. And those competencies are the first level competencies. And one of those, the first one in those core competencies is the communication. A leader must be highly communicative and in all respects, oral, written, and interpersonal communication skills. He should be inspiring. He or she should be motivating. He should be making people feel comfortable to listen to him. I mean, whether the decision is liked by you or not, but he should be able to still like the person because he or she has that capability of attracting people and making you to understand what he or she says. And in this case, what he has also done is, what are the behavioral characteristics or the indicators at the operational level and at the mastery level. As you grow up, I think you will become more, you will be more in the mastery level. And whereas at the beginning of your leadership, again, in the leadership, it's not, everyone is not in the same boat. at the beginning, you will be at the leadership level, you are more in the operations. So your capabilities or your competencies are slightly different than what they are at the mastery level. Now you can quickly look at it. This is all there in the textbook. There's nothing that I have added here. It is just drawn from the textbook. If you have any question to clarify, I will clarify it for you. Yeah, employees do not leave their employment. They leave their employers. Actually, it is not even employer. No, if you talk about Jagannath ji, this is what the first this was published by Harvard Business School in one article where they said employees do not leave the organizations, but they leave their bosses. Employer is an organization. So you don't
just I reworded it for my own sake.
You reworded it so that it looks more,
Catchy.
yeah, catch. Then we leave people, keep the organizations. If you don't like that is why it is important to get into to have a good boss than a good organization.
Right, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Now, this is a very rudimentary, so I don't think we should spend time on that. Then the second one, of course, the decision-making skills. This is where the problem is. Decision-making is not everyone's cup of tea. You must have certain capabilities. And that is one of the reasons why the managers in the organizations are paid better than the technicians, the technically capable people. That is because they have the ability to take decisions. And obviously, in every decision-making situation, the answers are more than one. And you have the ability to decipher which is the best one in the interest of the organization, and therefore you should be compensated for that. And any decision-making situation requires managers to have high level of integrity. I think again here you have different levels, as you can see at the operation level and at the mastery level. At the mastery level, you develop people. You will be remembered in the organization only when you start contributing to the growth of the people rather than being technically competent, do great performance yourself. So all leaders have one common quality, that they develop their teams, they don't develop themselves. Okay? Then, of course, leadership as a very, very important competence at the leadership level. You must be able to see what others cannot see. You must be able to envision what others cannot even think of. So your capability to develop those kinds of qualities and envision the future is what helps you. Now, how do you do that? Actually, how can somebody look at the future which others cannot do? I think that happens because of various reasons. One, you must be technically competent even to do that. For example, somebody is in retail industry. What will happen 10 years from now in retail industry? What kind of formats will exist in retail? Somebody is in insurance industry. What is the likely scenario from 10 years from now? Now that requires a thorough understanding of the industry and its evolution in the past. And if you remember the Michael Porter's 5 forces model, what are the threats that this is going to face? Where from the competition can come and hit me in this industry from unknown sources? Known source, your competition is not your competitors. Your competition is the unknown source which will come and hit you right under your belt without your knowledge. And somebody has the capability to look at that and then come back to the team and say, this is what I am able to foresee. This is the rationale for this, and let us be prepared for the organization's continued competitive sustenance. That is where the vision lies. So this is not possible for everybody. I think it is developed by enormous amount of experience, knowledge, and coupled with that is your gut feeling where your organization should be and what competitive scenarios you are going to face and how do you lead your team, how do you take your team along with you is what is important. So that is, and all that you will have to make sure. A leader, of course, one important thing that he has to make sure is that he should abide by the organization's culture, values, and the ethos. Culture you can change based on what kind of future you are looking for, but then your values and ethos are very, very strong foundations for you, and that you should not change. Then, of course, your ability to solve the problems, look beyond, think out of box, and come up with the contributions of others. Those things you must be able to practice. And one important quality that every leader should have is he should be trustworthy. He should not be seen as favoring one set of people and harming other set of people. I think all your decisions should be seen to be based on merit, objectivity, and you should be able to earn the trust of your team. Decisions can sometimes hit somebody, and that you should be aware and be empathetic and deal with those persons before it leads you to some kind of a problem. And one problem that can happen is underproductivity or frustrated employees in the organization, sometimes even leading to some negative consequences from the organization's employees because they are not treated well. And you may even have the consequence of a huge attrition rate, which will hit your organization because you will not be able to maintain your competitive advantage. Other things you can find, read it for yourself. We'll still strictly, slightly fast forward. Managing people, I think, is the most important quality. In the case of Mary, the case that you have studied, probably one of the reasons why 50% of the people have left the organization within 6 months of her becoming the regional head is perhaps she was not good at handling the people issues. I think people are the most important assets. As you all know today, in the market, you don't have problem for money. 30, 40 years ago, organizations that struggled for money. Today, money is not a problem for any organization. Then market's not a problem because a country like India has huge market for any kind of a product. All that you need to know is how do you actually identify your right segment and position your product rightly. So the biggest challenge today is people, right kind of a people. Getting those people, if it is such a challenge, then losing those people is a big cost. So therefore, organizations are increasingly looking at human resource management and training and development or learning and development as the core important functions for the maintenance and the growth of the organization so that they can continue to enjoy the market positions that they have so far enjoyed or even better than. And it is demonstrated, I think so one of you have raised this issue earlier. It is demonstrated now that HR people are becoming the leaders of the organization. They are occupying the CEO positions of the organizations. Previously, mostly the marketing guys or the finance people who were generally tipped to be the CEOs of the organizations. But now, because of the importance of the people management, assembling the people with the right competencies and then leading them for the success is more of a human resource capability than a marketing or a finance capability. And hence, organizations are increasingly looking at the HR, and maybe over a period of time, if L&D managers can demonstrate those HR capabilities, then even the the L&D people can aspire for becoming a top leader in the organization. So it is just not knowing the recruitment processes, is much more than that. And one of those competencies is, as a HR leader, if you are able to develop good competency framework for your organization, I think that will help you a lot in the future. Then, of course, teamwork. Leaders don't do work. What they do is they make their teams work. And therefore, if you're able to inspire your team to perform, which also means you must first know how to communicate what the team should deliver, and then you must be able to put the right teams together. You cannot put teams which are not cohesive, and then you must build the team managing skills among the team leaders and identify what kind of collaboration they need to do, and then run the and organization. Most of the work is done in teams. They're all committees, teams who work together for a common goal, if you're able to communicate the goal, create a right collaborative environment, and inspire the team through your own interventions when necessary, and do not interfere in their performance, probably you are able to achieve that kind of a success. The role of a CEO or a good a good leader in the organization is, if your role is limited to your own organization, working collaboratively with multiple departments, and if your role is at the CEO level, working collaboratively with the other players in the industry rather than thinking others are your competitors. Today, it is more of cooperation rather than competition. So you will need to work with your competition without any inhibitions or any strings attached to that. The strategic planning, obviously, when you have the vision and you want to convert your vision into action, you need to have a strategy, and that planning process is a very, very important thing. Strategic planning involving including everyone at the leadership level in the planning process. You cannot afford to leave anyone behind if you are making a strategic plan. And then once you make the plan, you should be able to communicate right down to the lowest employee. So that is why organizations have the practice of the CEO writing a letter at least once in a year on communicating what the organization stands for and where the organization wants to be, so that everyone up to the lowest level contribute in the organization is able to relate and identify himself with those goals of the organization, and that is a part of the organizational strategic planning. So you should not only be the champion for your own strategy, you should also develop the ambassador for your strategy so that you are able to take the organizations forward. Then you should also be the leader should also be able to bring in all the resources required. It is not enough to have the vision and a strategy, but then a strategy will work only at the execution level. It can only work if you have the resources available. Resources include men, material, money, and of course, technology these days, because without technology, you will not be able to achieve much. Then, of course, service focus. One, I think all organizations should, we are not discussing strategy here. In strategy, you would have studied what your organization stands for. Mercedes-Benz stands for immaculate quality. The price is not the concern. You charge the best, but you give the best to the quality so that people feel proud about owning a Mercedes-Benz. Maruti car, on the contrary, is value for money, great service network, and anybody can own it and anybody can get serviced. And maintenance costs are relative. So you have a market position, your position, nobody else's position. And if you have positioned it rightly and communicated it rightly, then you know where you stand. And quality is fitness for the purpose. So there's nothing like, Maruti car is not a quality car, or Benz is the only quality car. Quality is, as Joran said, quality is fitness for the purpose. So you must define what quality is meant for you and for your products, and what kind of service you want to provide, and how do you provide at the most appropriate and cost and the convenience to the consumer, right? So you must be able to define these things at the highest level as a leader, or if you are a middle level manager, you must be able to, you are the bridge between the top and the bottom. The top level thinking about the product and the services and all your customer needs, you should be able to communicate to the people down below you so that their performance, a middle level leader's performance, is equal to the sum of all the people who are working with him. I think just now we have heard Mr. Jagannath Kulkarni saying that there was somebody who was not perceived to be a great leader, but once he has become a development officer, he has developed certain skills. I mean, that is what I think I'm putting both these two together, what Rasya Madam said and what Jagannath ji said, that it is possible at the individual level, or it is possible for the organization to intervene and develop individual to be a better leader, provided the individual has the ability to transform, adaptability to transform himself, and then he will be, the moment you start contributing to the people's growth, obviously it will also lead to your own growth. Yes, sir. Tell me.
The question is that whether these leadership traits or leadership skills can be learned, or whether they are inborn. Like in leadership, we have several kinds of leadership, accidental leadership, and so on. Very typically, it is told about in case of Mahatma Gandhi, he never wanted to become leader, but the leadership is thrust upon him. उनको सौंप दिया, मतलब जैसे कहते हैं कि while in Africa also, or then when he returned back to India. My question is whether the leadership skills can be taught, whether they can be learned. When the motivation, like in that case, classic example I mentioned, the person is transformed so much because of the motivation of money incentive. So motivator can be anything, but my question again is whether they can be learned. Thank you.
Okay, anybody wants to respond to that in the group?
No, sir, I definitely think that the skills can be learned. Because I've been seeing it for the last so many years. People learn when they want to, they transform themselves over time, and it's magical. It can really be magical.
I think that answers your question, Jagannathji, but I want to caution you. See, the motivation for the transformation need not necessarily be the money. Sometimes you may feel money is apparently there, but then money is not the only reason, or money generally is not the reason for becoming somebody wanting to become a leader. It is
Of
more,
course, any kind of. That's what I'm saying. What is convincing to you? That is the motivator, isn't it? Need not be money. I'm just gave example of money in that case, but anything like in case of Gandhiji or maybe any leader we take, what triggers that person to inculcate those qualities to become the successful leader? Thank you.
See, the motivation for different people comes from different sources. If you take, let's say, Dr. Varghese Kuran, I think in the last class I mentioned to you, I think the motivation for him is not that, he would become a chairman of a company. In fact, typically he used to say he was the chairman of National Dairy Development Board in 1964, and for more than 25 years he remained a chairman. So he used to tell the employees in the organization that I have never been promoted for 25 years, because he was the chairman and became the chairman, remained chairman for 25 years. Obviously, where will he get promoted, right? That's a way of putting things. But then his motivation was, at that point in time, India did not have, or Indian children did not have enough milk, and he thought that is something that he should contribute to the society, and therefore he did his best for making India self-reliant in milk production. Similarly, Swaminathan, M.S. Swaminathan, he wanted India to become self-reliant in production of grains, and therefore he thought of grain revolution. So for these people, the motivation comes not just from the money or the fame or celebrity status that they achieve, but it is a compelling need of doing some service to the society which will benefit large number of people. Similarly, in the organizations, great leaders actually transform the organizations for achieving a better level, with more products, more markets, better turnover, more employees, things like that. So a leader may look at it. Some leaders, yes, if it is thrust upon them in the organization, because once you become a manager, I mean, typically in IAS, let me give you the example of IAS officers. They all have tenured promotions. Whether all IAS officers are leaders, yes, for them it is leadership thrust upon them, but not all of them do the contribution same way. Not all of them have the same level of abilities being a leader, right? If somebody has to make an assessment, objective assessment, you will find some of them not doing pretty well on the leadership competencies that they have. But I think we will leave it at that. This is a discussion that can go on and on. And service is most important, and what contribution you want to bring to your people is very important. And all leaders build their great organizations in terms of quality of product, quality of service, quality of the working environment, quality of culture. All that is very, very important. Therefore, you continue to work on creating various benchmarks and then achieving. Sometimes you challenge your own self because there's nobody else in the market to challenge, and therefore you have to challenge yourself, and you perform better tomorrow than what your performance today is. Right. Now, we have covered all the 9. Now, what does it mean? In this particular organization, which is again in a specific sector, they have identified this. Now, once you identify these capabilities or the competencies, you need to assess. You need to assess. And what this person, the concerned manager here, HR manager, has identified is those people who have these 9 competencies have performed better and their teams have performed better. Now you'll have to validate that, and then it is not just doing it once in the organization, it has to be done continuously. So for the purpose of validation, what this HR manager has done is he has taken 3 different paths. One is getting it validated through a 360-degree feedback. The second one is putting those people through some kind of a psychometric tool. And the third one, of course, is this course, the purpose of this course, which is a development center. And putting it through, you can create a kind of not only the framework, a kind of a scorecard you can create. So that is what he has done. He has come up with some kind of a leadership scorecard, which will help the organization on a continuous basis, periodically evaluate their own leadership positions so that the organization does not face the kind of situation that it has faced in the case of Mary. I think that is what the case is. Now, using this case, let us go back to the 2 competency frameworks that we wanted to cover in today's class. We still have half an hour time, and therefore we should be able to cover this. Okay. Now, the first one is Rubin's leadership framework. There are 4 frameworks we are studying apart from the case in this. Out of the 4 frameworks, you can expect anyone, because the examiner cannot ask except any one of these four frameworks. He cannot ask any other question. Therefore, you must be thorough with the frameworks. It can be a specific framework for your exam, or it can be a generic question. If it is a generic question, you can choose any one of the frameworks that you are thorough with and answer the question related to leadership framework. But if the question comes on what is Rubin's leadership competency framework, and write a critique on that. I mean, somebody wants to really see how thorough you are. You can also be asked to write a critique on that, because there are, as far as leadership theory is concerned, there are so many publications, so much of research has been done. Somebody has come out with, I think Rubin himself has published, he has stated in 2015, on an average, 4 research papers get published per day in 2015. Because he collected the number of papers published in the refereed journals, which are available in the databases, and he found some 1,500 papers were published in that particular year, which averages to around 4 papers per day in 15, which means it must have gone to maybe some 6 papers or 7 papers per day. So that is the amount of research that is being done. And there is still no finished line for the research in the leadership related studies. And hence you can always critique if the examiner wants you to give some critical evaluation of what the theory or framework is. What he has done, Rubin has done, and not done any original work of his own. He has not studied leaders across the world and came up with this framework. He has done a meta-analysis. He has taken the papers published, and then he has come out with some 5 different areas which leaders require to be competent or competencies, leadership competencies. The first one, of course, is the analytic competencies. Now, how far a leader should be data-driven, how far a leader should be analytics-oriented is a very, very debatable issue. Today, you have Fortunately, the databases available and the technical tools available related to data analysis and even telling you what is the right and the wrong thing, thanks to the artificial intelligence and various data analysis tools. But then think of the time like Jagannath was referring to Gandhiji. During Gandhiji's time, I don't think he had so much of data to analyze and say this is the right decision, this is the, let me conduct a survey and see who's wanting what and all that. So at some point in time, it was gut feel, your own ability to look into things the way you are capable of seeing, and then trying to take a decision and trying to sell your decision to the masses, right? So there is no data-driven, analytics-driven solution. Later on, people may have come out with some kind of theory or study saying that, oh, this is how it works. That is post facto. But the competency framework that Ruben has given says that you must have the competency to be analytical, and therefore you must have the, basically there are three things in this. One is a leader should first of all know how to manage himself. Number two, how to manage his team. And then he has to know how to manage his organization. So here, by definition, a leader should be self-reflective, self-awareness. Self-awareness again means you're talking about borrowing something from the emotional intelligence. You must be thought leader. You must have great thoughts, at least in your area of work, and then attentive to one's own and others' feeling. You must be empathic. You must be empathic. If you remember the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, if any one of you have gone through that or if you recollect it, all that he said is that if you have these 7 qualities, you can be successful in any field. So there was a question some years ago. How come an IAS officer becomes a chairman of a coal company, a milk company? He can also become a steel company and things like that, which are not related in terms of the products or the resources required, and yet they're expected to perform. So the answer came in the form of 7 highly effective habits of successful people. Yes, sir, Jagannath ji.
In 7 habits, he mentioned about the 3 stages like independence, then interdependence, and lastly, he talked about the synergy. So I think as a leader, the person should be in a position to capture that synergy. Thank you.
Correct, absolutely. I mean, the very definition of leadership says 5 plus 5 is not 10. It has to be 25. I mean, that is what the leadership is all about. You are able to put things together in such a way that the sum total is much more than the total of each individual unit. That is what it is, right? I think all these are very essential skills that one needs to have. So in today's context, in 21st century leadership context, definitely analytic thinking or analytic abilities is important, and that is analytics is more to do with mind than on your computer. Your mind should be able to see something which all others cannot see. Then the personal competencies, I think you must be highly energetic, you must be able to drive people, you must have the best of the cognitive abilities. I think all of you are aware of it. Your character should be unquestioned, impeccable character for a leader is very, very important. And you must be able to talk only when you have the conviction of what you're doing. One of the problems and one of the challenges in the structured organizational way is typically if you are taking a CEO level person only for a period of 3 years, that is a problem. If I know my tenure is only for 3 years, you know what my commitment levels are. It is only for 3 years. It is very, very short term. It is myopic, and it is very difficult for at least in this era, for people to be as committed as they should be. If you think that your days are counted only for 1,000 days or something like that in the current role. That is why organizations such as General Electric normally they select CEO at the age of around 45, around 40 to 50 age, so that the CEO can have at least a 2-decade long stint in the organization, and their commitment levels and their vision for the organization take shape over a period of time. So you select somebody who's in their mid-career, I mean mid-age. I'm not saying mid-career, but he would have already been a senior leader, but the person would have the age group of around 40 to 50, and then he will have a long tenure of at least a decade plus, so that you are able to shape up the organizations. Then organizational competencies, obviously you must know, you must have the vision, very, very important for a leader. Then you must be strategic in your thinking, and then you must have the ability to execute your strategy. Now, execution by itself is a new competence that not everybody is endowed with, and many organizations fail because they may have great strategy, great vision, but then they don't have the ability to execute. And therefore, the transformation of a strategy to action leading to the desired outcomes is when actually they fail. And in the process, he must have the competencies such as ability to bring in change or manage change. And whenever you're talking about change, there will be conflicts, ability to resolve the conflicts, and then he should be a good mentor. He should be dependable mentor, and then he should be able to lead all his team. And when necessary, he should go beyond and walk the last mile for the benefit of the organization, keeping aside his own ego as a CEO. Then positional competencies, obviously, this is something even at the topmost level. It is not that, if you have the other competencies and sans the technical competence, you are you will be successful. So whatever the knowledge that the position requires, somebody should acquire. I think that is where, some of you have said that some competencies can be acquired by the individuals. So these competencies, people should learn that urge, that aspiration, that compelling need to learn has to come in. And then once you have it, I'm sure these positional competencies can be acquired by the concerned person. And of course, here he has put that the communication competencies the last, but then you will see in the other frameworks, communication competencies actually are the part of the core competencies, and therefore you should not think that competencies related to communication are the least important. In fact, they are the first and foremost. The sequence in which he has presented these competencies can be questioned, it can be critiqued, but still competencies related to communications are very, very important. You should be a very, very good listener. You should be a good communicator in oral, written, and other interpersonal communications. And you must be able to ask the relevant questions. I think the most important question the competence a good leader should have is asking the relevant question and allowing people to respond to that rather than trying to preach something to somebody. So the other things you can learn by yourself, you can go through. The beauty of this Rubin's competency framework is under each of those 5 competencies that he has talked out, major competence, he came up with 7 sub-themes under each one of them. I don't know why he has fancied for 7 and why is it not 5 in one and 8 in another. Yes, but come up with through his own research, each one of those major competencies or major themes, he has come up with 7 sub-competencies which are listed in this slide there. And further to that, we are not deliberating on this because the scope of this chapter in the book has limited to only identifying these things. Further to that, there's no discussion. Therefore, so it suffices for you if you are able to understand that there are 7 sub-themes under each theme or 7 sub-competencies under each competency. And if you are if you want to be a good leader, obviously you should optimize your competence levels in all these 7 under each theme. Now, from here, if you look at it, you can see using those 7 sub-themes, one can actually start quantifying them and create what is called as a leadership competencies scorecard. If you are able to do that, and if you want to make multiple leaders in the organization, compare them in terms of their score, then it becomes easy for the board of management or the CEO or some managing director or the chairman to take decision, because you are comparing the numbers. Otherwise, it becomes subjective. You are bringing some kind of an objectivity into your decision making of making somebody leader or promoting somebody as a leader. I think that is where we will test the Rubin's leadership competency framework. Then we come to the last one in the chapter, which is pyramid leadership competency framework. As you can see, actually, if you understand this particular slide, rest of it is all very, very simple. This competency framework basically looks at leadership competencies as a pyramid. At the base of the pyramid, you have the core competencies. Now, I want to caution you, Jagannath ji, you asked me last week about the CK Prahlad's core competence, but then CK Prahlad's core competence, as I said then, and again I am repeating, is related to core competence of an organization. That is not, at the organization level, we are not defining different competencies. We are only looking at what is core competence of an organization. But here the core competencies are related to the individual. It is not one competence. The individual will have multiple competencies. Yes, sir. You have raised your hand.
Again, while we talk about the core competency of the organization, like Dr. C.K. Prahlad has mentioned, and even the GE followed it to a great extent, Jack Welch and other people. While the industries or the businesses, they diversify their activities, like what GE also has done, even in if you look at the BFSI sector, banking and financial services sector, banks are now cross-selling different products, means they are losing their core business. Even the insurance companies, I always quote my own company's example. Our core income is getting reduced and our ancillary income is getting enhanced, and that is why we are able to maintain the profitability. So how you look at it from the sustainability point of view, when you are losing the focus from your core business and you are diversifying, or you are diverting or deviating from it to the newer business. Thank you.
Okay, now, though it is not a part of this chapter, just to respond to your question, let me tell you, I'm personally, at a personal level, I am a very severe critic of C.K. Prahlad's core competence theory. In fact, my PhD, I have started thinking about doing PhD and did my PhD because I thought that was a flawed theory of core competence. And extensively, I have used in my thesis the core competence related studies. And unfortunately, I could not meet him. Although I wanted to meet him and all, I tried once he came to ISB here. Unfortunately, I could not meet him. In the meanwhile, he passed away much before I moved into a serious discourse of my thesis. Now, whether organizations should go for cross-selling and getting more into profit and all that, this is where I said the myopic approach of the CEOs of the organization. In fact, GE is very, very focused on. When Jack Welch took over, he closed several divisions and he wanted to be in those businesses where they are in the top 3 global positions. He said his simple mantra was, get out of those businesses where you can never be in the top 3 of the global market. And then that is why he ruthlessly laid off so many people, and then he earned his name for being ruthless in his leadership approach, right? GE is highly focused. They don't get into it. I know in an Indian company which has been into various sundry businesses, which is probably the oldest listed company in India, this company. And I have seen it for almost now 20 years. they don't have the conviction, the courage to close down some businesses, which all they know they're not adding value to the organization, right? When that apart, a lot of these companies are doing because the CEOs want to see in my 3 years tenure or 5 years tenure, how much more profit I can show, how much more dividend I can give. And if I do this, then I'll get a next posting of a the chairman or a managing director somewhere else. So this is a myopic approach. But if you go by the leadership theory that we are talking about, core competence theory, organizations should do differently. And partly maybe because Prahlad is no more there. I think he passed away maybe around 2011-12. It's more than a decade. A lot of people are not even implementing what he has said. As long as he was there, probably he was able to propagate the theory. But then Gary Hammer, who wrote along with him some theories related to that, is also not actively pursued. Now, I think I leave it at that. This is something beyond the scope. But what I'm saying is core competencies at the individual level are different, right? Now, here in this pyramid, as you can see, there are 11 core competencies that have been discussed at a leadership level, and 8 leadership competencies have been discussed, and there are 4 professional competencies which are discussed. Now, without one being on the other, that is, unless you have the core competencies which are at the bottom, building the rest is not easy. So you cannot suddenly become a leader just because you have the professional competencies, and without those 2 other competencies, you will crumble. Similarly, if you have the leadership competencies and you don't have the professional competencies for that particular position, again, you will not be able to perform. And if you have the only core competencies and you don't have the other competencies and you are thrust upon the leadership on you, your organization will suffer. There are several case studies related to individuals who have become a leader of the organization at different levels of their competencies here, and then later on the organizations have suffered. We will not get into those details of the individuals, but first, I think let us understand what these 11 core competencies that you're looking at the individual level: the communication, teamwork, creative problem solving, interpersonal skills, managing client relationships, self-direction, which is an adult quality, and being flexible, being professional, financial ability to deal with the financial matters of the company, being a business acumen, and build appropriate relationships with the employees and external agencies. Now, these are all the qualities that you require at the bottom of the pyramid here, the leadership competency pyramid, right? Now, one of those things, if you let us delve upon financial competency. Now, if you are a CEO, one of the reasons why for many years the HR professionals could not occupy the leadership positions and continue to suffer from the lack of this particular competencies, they don't understand the numbers. So if you want to be a CEO, the top leader of an organization, or even if you want to be at the vice president level, because at the vice president level, you just can't talk about marketing or HR or operations. You have to also understand and comment and contribute to the numbers of the organization. So financial capability or competence is very, very important at the individual level. Any one of the people who wants to be a leader in their organization, rise up to the level of the leader of the organization, should have the knowledge of the financial competencies. And then you must be a business acumen. You cannot simply say, I'm a HR head, therefore I will only talk about recruitment, talent acquisition, talent management, talent innovation, and all that. You must also be able to contribute to the thinking of the organization as a part of a business requirement. Now, when you come to the leadership competencies, you have leadership abilities, visioning process. I think this visioning process we develop in the organization. Jagannath ji asked a question whether this can be developed. Yes, I have gone through this process of the organizational visioning development process. There are trainers, there are training programs where you are inducted into the process of visioning for your organization, and they're pretty effective. Creates and leads teams, assesses situations quickly and accurately. That is what your response time is faster than others. fosters conflict resolution, create a solution which is win-win rather than win-lose. Then you are able to lead the projects and make them successful, implement employee involvement strategies, coach and train peers and subordinates. I think this coaching and mentoring peers and subordinates is what makes you a different one than the others. Just because you are a leader does not mean that you should not reach out to those guys who are in need, even if they are not at your own level. So subordinates being mentored is an outstanding quality that you should have. That is what also makes you not to look at yourself as a egoistic person. Then at the professional competency level, because we are dealing with L&D, so these professional competencies are related only for L&D function. They are not the professional competencies for every sector. They can vary from one sector to the other sector. For the L&D sector, adult learning, the theory is related to adults and their learning processes, because we teach only the adults. Then instructional design, then consulting and instruction. So these are the competencies that every leader in L&D field should possess. But if you take any other field, you have to identify, decipher what are those related competencies in those particular fields. Yeah, any questions related to this? It is very comprehensive. It is easy to understand, and probably even train the people. You know, you can create modules to train people using this framework. Yes, sir.
The question may not be related to what you were asking, but I want to ask about the assessment center and development center, which has been mentioned in the booklet also. They have very categorically differentiated between these two. I want to ask very practical question, whether the organizations, they do have these kind of centers, assessment center and development center. Thank you.
Okay. Very good. I think this is a sequential movement from here to the next session. We will get into development center and assessment center. Now, what we have done is we have understood the technical competency framework. We understood the leadership competency framework. Now, these two competency frameworks are not enough to learn as frameworks. You must be able to translate those frameworks into actionable items which will benefit your employees as individuals and your teams as groups of people working together, and your organization, because it has a purpose, it has to achieve the organizational goals. So it is a sequence. The next topic, next Sunday, we will initiate you all into what an assessment center is, what a development center is, and how these theories have to be benefited by bringing in the assessment center and bringing the, you have to assess the competency frameworks from the individual perspective so that you're able to take decisions. Yes, sir.
Also, in the study material, they have mentioned as development center process. So I was a little confused about it, whether the development center is
in the next 5 sessions are dedicated to those things. So
okay, thank you, sir.
It is not that, you know, we can just answer that in the next 5 minutes. So we will go through what a development center is, what goes on in that, what are those processes in that, and how do you manage the development center? Because as trainers, as people who are leaders in the training space, you will not just go through the development center process. You may be also be responsible for managing the development center, sometimes even setting up the development center, whether it is worth the effort to put up a development center within the organization, or you should you use a development center elsewhere. What are the consequences of that? All those dimensions related to the development center and its management and the need for it within the organization. Those dimensions we will discuss in the next 5 sessions, starting from the next Sunday. So we have completed, actually you can see this as a 3-phase course. The first phase is understanding the technical competencies. So obviously you can also expect some questions related to that in the test based on the technical competencies. The second phase is the leadership competencies. The second phase, you can again expect some question related to leadership. The third phase is understanding the development center and what processes go on. That is the third part. And the fourth part is how do you manage a development center? what are the consequences, costs related to that, what are the budgets required. That is, this is the basic framework of the entire course. So if you put the last two together, it becomes a 3-phase course, 3-part course. If you look at the last phase also into 2 parts, it becomes a 4-part course. I think in terms of memorizing, you can simply look at it as these 4 parts. And if you assume that there are 4 parts and there can be 2 questions from each part, obviously you will have 8 questions for your end exam. And all of you should be thorough with each of those parts. I think I have answered partly your question, and I have also answered how to prepare yourself for the final exam. Okay. So coming back to this pyramid competency framework, I think I have broadly explained whatever the points are there in the textbook. To some extent, I have refined them and I have put, because this entire textbook itself is like bullet points. So there's not a great, descriptive part, and you all can study that on your own. I'm just browsing through so that you are able to see what are those sub points in each one of them, and all of them are commonsensical. Once you read it once, twice, you'll be able to write on your own. You don't have to mug up. You don't have to do anything on special efforts to remember them. And these two, which are basically business equipment, the original literature on this puts under the professional competence. Whether it is a personal competence or a professional competence is a question, because if I am a general manager, HR, the level of business acumenship I must have is relatively less compared to if I am a vice president HR or a CEO of the organization. So in some places, it is business acumen is given as a part of the professional competence, whereas in our treatment in the ISTD's material, it is considered to be a core competence. Now, whether everyone will have this core competence is a question. Therefore, I said it is possible that we may have a critique on this. Then leadership competencies, I think all of you understand what it is. There is nothing significantly different from what we have been discussing. And then the professional competence is related only to L&D, and all these things, all of you are aware. You have already studied this. There's nothing much that I need to add. But if you still have any